Before we begin, if you enjoy story narrations like this, consider subscribing so you don't miss future ones.
The Belvedere Hotel stood over Baltimore like a building trapped between two different eras. By 2006, the historic structure had already spent decades becoming part hotel, part residence, part forgotten landmark. Its ornate architecture and aging hallways carried the feeling of old luxury slowly fading with time. Visitors walked through polished lobbies and elegant corridors, but deeper inside the building were maintenance areas, unused rooms, empty hallways, and sections that rarely saw activity anymore. And somewhere inside that massive structure, hidden behind locked doors and abandoned conference areas, investigators would eventually discover the body of Rey Rivera. A discovery so strange that nearly 20 years later, people still debate what truly happened that night. On May 16, 2006, Rey Rivera was 32 years old. To friends and family, he appeared ambitious and optimistic. He had moved from California to Baltimore with his wife Allison after reconnecting with Porter Stansbury, a longtime friend connected to a financial publishing company known as Stansbury and Associates. Rey worked on writing, research and video projects while continuing to pursue his own creative ambitions in filmmaking and screenwriting. Those closest to him later said he constantly talked about future plans, new projects, new opportunities, things he still wanted to accomplish. That became one of the reasons the case disturbed people so deeply afterward, because nothing about Rey Rivera seemed to fit neatly into the explanation investigators would later lean toward. In the weeks before his disappearance, however, family members reportedly noticed moments where Rey seemed uneasy, not dramatically, fearful, not paranoid in a way that immediately alarmed everyone around him, but small moments stood out later after his death. One incident involved a house alarm unexpectedly going off in the middle of the night. According to public interviews given later by Allison Rivera, Rey reacted intensely, grabbing a baseball bat and appearing genuinely frightened. At the time, it may have seemed like an isolated incident, but afterward, people began wondering whether Rey had been under some kind of stress that nobody fully understood. Still, by all public accounts, he continued living normally, working, planning, talking about the future. Nothing suggested he was about to disappear. On the evening of May the 16th, Allison Rivera was away on a business trip. A female co-worker staying at the house later became one of the last known witnesses to see Rey alive. At approximately 6:30 p.m., the phone rang. According to accounts later shared publicly, Rey answered the call and immediately reacted with urgency. Witness later recalled that he quickly grabbed his keys and left the house in a hurry. There was no long conversation, no explanation, no indication of where he was going, just sudden movement. And then he was gone. That phone call would become one of the biggest unanswered mysteries in the entire case. Investigators later traced the call to a switchboard connected to Rey's workplace, but the exact extension and the identity of the person who called him were never publicly confirmed. To this day, nobody outside the investigation knows exactly what was said during that conversation, and whatever Rey heard on the other end of the line seemed important enough for him to leave immediately. Hours passed. Then an entire night. Rey Rivera never came home. At first, there was confusion more than panic. Friends and family assumed something unexpected had happened. But soon concern turned into fear. Calls to Rey's phone went unanswered. Nobody could locate him. No verified sightings appeared. Then investigators discovered his car parked near the Belvedere Hotel in Baltimore's Mount Vernon neighborhood. The location immediately raised questions. Why would Rey be there? What brought him to the Belvedere that night? Investigators searched the hotel, but initially they found nothing. No sign of Rey Rivera, no witnesses who clearly remembered seeing him, no obvious crime scene. The case appeared to hit a dead end almost immediately. Then, several days later, the search took a bizarre turn. According to public accounts from the investigation, family members and search volunteers examining areas around the hotel noticed damage on a lower rooftop connected to the Belvedere complex. There appeared to be a large hole in the roof surface. The opening looked unnatural, enough to attract attention, and directly beneath that hole, inside an unused conference room, searchers made a horrifying discovery. Rey Rivera's body had been lying there the entire time, partially decomposed, hidden, inside a room few people ever entered. The discovery shocked everyone involved, but the scene itself only deepened the mystery, because investigators now faced an enormous question. How had Rey Rivera ended up there? Authorities concluded that Rey had likely fallen from a significant height, crashing through the roof before landing inside the conference room below. The autopsy documented catastrophic blunt force injuries consistent with a high fall, but almost immediately, investigators and outside observers began questioning the physical circumstances surrounding the scene. The distance between the main roof and the hole where Rey entered became heavily debated. Independent analysts later argued online over whether such a jump or fall was physically possible from the areas investigators considered likely launch points. Some believed the trajectory seemed unusually far. Others questioned whether Rey could have gained enough momentum. Then there was the issue of access. How exactly did Rey reach the rooftop area in the first place? Could he have entered unnoticed? Were certain access points locked? How familiar was he with the building? Over time, these unanswered logistical questions became central to the mystery itself. Because while the injuries aligned with a fall, many people felt the surrounding circumstances remained difficult to explain cleanly. Then investigators discovered something else strange. Inside Rey Rivera's workspace, taped behind his computer monitor, was a small, folded note. At first glance, the document appeared deeply unusual. The writing included references to movies, books, famous individuals, Freemasonry, technology companies, personal acquaintances, and fragmented thoughts arranged almost like coded stream of consciousness writing. Certain sections resembled lists, others resembled philosophical reflections. Some lines referenced the 1997 film The Game, a psychological thriller involving manipulation, secret organizations, and blurred reality. To investigators, the note immediately attracted attention because they needed to determine whether it reflected Rey's mental state prior to his disappearance. But interpretations varied wildly. Some people believed the note suggested psychological distress. Others argued it looked more like creative brainstorming from a writer developing ideas for stories or film concepts. Because of the unusual nature of the document, the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit was eventually asked to review it. The BAU conducted an analysis intended to offer behavioral insights into the writing and circumstances surrounding the case, but even that consultation failed to deliver definitive answers. The FBI reportedly emphasized that its conclusions were limited by the information and materials available at the time, and once again, the case remained suspended in uncertainty. Meanwhile, Baltimore police publicly treated the death as a probable suicide, but officially, the medical examiner reached a different conclusion. The manner of death was ruled undetermined. That distinction mattered enormously because an undetermined ruling meant investigators could not conclusively establish whether Rey Rivera's death resulted from suicide, accident, homicide, or some other circumstance. For Rey's family, the ruling reinforced their doubts. Alison Rivera publicly stated many times that she struggled to believe Rey intentionally ended his own life. She pointed to his future plans, ongoing projects, and behavior leading up to his disappearance. Others focused on the unanswered questions surrounding the rooftop trajectory. the phone call and the strange note found behind his computer. And over time, public fascination with the case only grew stronger. As internet forums and independent investigators dissected the mystery, theories multiplied. Some people argued the evidence pointed toward suicide despite the unusual details. Others believed Rey may have accidentally fallen while attempting something dangerous or impulsive, and many became convinced that foul play had somehow been involved. But despite years of speculation, no publicly available evidence has conclusively identified another person as responsible for Rey Rivera's death. No criminal charges were ever filed. No definitive alternate theory was officially proven. The case simply remained unresolved, suspended between explanations. Today, the Belvedere Hotel still stands in Baltimore. People continue passing through its hallways every day. Many guests have no idea that inside the building, beyond the elegant lobby and historic architecture, one of America's strangest modern mysteries unfolded. But for those who know the story of Rey Rivera, the unanswered questions never really disappear. A man receives a phone call, leaves home suddenly, drives into the night, then vanishes. Days later, his body is discovered beneath a hole in the roof of a forgotten conference room inside one of Baltimore's oldest hotels. The official cause of death was blunt force trauma. The official manner of death remains undetermined, and nearly 20 years later, nobody can fully explain what happened after Rey Rivera answered that phone call.
Did the story send chills down your spine? And from which city are you tuning in tonight? Let's meet in the comments. If you enjoyed this dark tale, you can support me with a super thanks so I can keep uncovering more gripping true crime stories for you. Thank you so much for your support. It helps me bring even more suspenseful narratives to life. I'm looking forward to your thoughts on this mystery. There's a lot more waiting for you on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. See you in the next chilling story with intrigue and respect.